Welcome to NewYorkTrue.com. This is a supplement to our interview last month with New York State Superintendent of Financial Services Benjamin Lawsky. Lawsky heads the New York Department of Financial Services. That department was created by legislation proposed by Governor Cuomo shortly after he took office and combined what were previously the State Insurance Department and the State Banking Department. As superintendent, Lawsky is New York's chief regulator of insurance companies and state-chartered banks. I asked Superintendent Lawsky for his view of the performance of insurance companies in responding to the immediate aftermath of Sandy.
Yeah, well, it's varied. I mean, I think many of the big insurance companies want to do the right thing, but they're overwhelmed when you have this kind of damage, again, with this kind of severity and over this geographic scope. And there were so many logistical problems early on. We wanted, the first big thing you have to do with insurance is get adjusters to people's homes to look at the damage, assess it, write a report, and then the insurance company knows how much they owe and they can work it out with the homeowner. But getting those adjusters in is the first big thing. And one, there weren't enough adjusters because there was so much damage. And two, a lot of them couldn't travel both because of power outages and because we had a gasoline problem. So I remember in those early days, we were spending a lot of time, how do we set up an area so the adjusters can get gasoline? How do we make sure that they can get to places where there's power? And what do we do about the fact that there aren't enough adjusters? So we have a temporary adjuster licensing process that we use when there's a big event like this. And we ended up pretty quickly licensing about 20,000 additional adjusters so we could really just flood the zone.
I asked Superintendent Lawsky what homeowners should fairly expect from insurance companies in such circumstances and how the insurance companies measured up.
The one thing people certainly should expect is when they, on day 4, day 5, are finally in a position to call their insurance company, someone should answer the phone and someone should get right back to them and someone should tell them what to expect. And that's a big issue. People are, especially New Yorkers, are incredibly resilient. But what tortures them is not knowing what to expect. And it's entirely unfair. And one of the things we try to do at DFS in those early days after a storm is to make sure that insurance companies are being responsive. If an insurance company tells someone, we'll have someone there in 8 days, they can usually deal with that. They can figure out how to deal with that time period. When no one's answering the phone, or they get, we'll call you back, and then they don't get a call back, that's what's very hard to deal with because people have to plan their lives. It was the same thing with electricity. People wanted to know, when is my power coming on? People know. New Yorkers are, a tough breed. If you tell them you're not getting your power for 10 days, they'll figure it out. They'll go live with another family or with relatives for those 10 days. When they're not told, it could be tomorrow, it could be 2 weeks, that's torturing them. And that's the kind of dysfunction we were trying to prevent. So I think that's the first thing people can expect. And then I think they should expect, again, depending on the damage, and the scope of the storm, they should expect the companies to get out there reasonably fast and to be really making a move to get there. So it's funny because when there's not a storm on the blue sky days, it's often not a rush to get an adjuster when you have damage to your property. And in fact, you don't want it to be rushed because you want the company to take the time to really work it out with you, the homeowner. But things change when you really want to get whole communities back on their feet. And in those cases, you do want to really push the ball down the court fast. And so the governor had us do a regulation soon after the storm that really cut the amount of time an adjuster had to get to an individual's home in half.